Insomnia is not merely the absence of sleep, it is a vacuum that nature abhors, and if you leave the door of your consciousness open long enough, something will step in. This was the conclusion Julian reached after 72 hours of staring at his ceiling, watching shadows crawl across the plaster like insects. Julian was a data analyst who believed every problem had a solution buried in code, but his inability to sleep was a variable he could not solve. The exhaustion was a physical weight, pressing behind his eyes, turning his movement sluggish. It was in this state of vulnerability that he ordered the Somnium Halo, a prototype sleep device from a startup with no address, just a sleek website and a promised surrender control achieved. Total Rest, the package arrived on a gray Tuesday. The device was elegant, almost surgical, a band of matte black silicone with silver nodes meant to rest against the temples, pulsating with low-frequency vibrations. The manual contained only sync instructions and a warning: do not remove the halo. During a cycle, disorientation may occur. Julian did not care about disorientation. He cared about oblivion. He strapped a cold silicone across his forehead, felt the nodes hum, and lay back. He expected a struggle, but the halo worked with terrifying efficiency. A sound filled his ears, not white noise, but a deep rhythmic thrumming like a massive engine idling underground. His thoughts were silenced, cut off as if a wire had been severed. Darkness crashed down. He woke up the next morning, gasping, his lungs filling with air, as if he had been holding his breath. The sunlight was harsh. He felt unnaturally rested, but his body felt wrong. His muscles were sore, a deep burn in his calves, usually reserved for marathon runs. His fingers were stiff, and there was a copper taste in his mouth. He checked the app. The interface was a black void with a green circle reading sleep efficiency 100% motor. Activity high. Julian frowned. High motor activity. He was a sleeper who barely moved. He dismissed it as a calibration error. He went to the kitchen to make coffee, but stopped. The kitchen was clean, not just tidy, but sterile. He had left dishes the night before. Now they were washed, dried, and stacked with military precision. The counter had been wiped down, the chairs pushed in at exact angles. A cold prickle of unease danced down his spine. Had he sleepwalked? He never had before, but the evidence was undeniable. He must have done it in a fugue state, induced by the halo. He tried to laugh it off, telling himself asleep. Cleaning robot was a feature, not a bug, but the feeling of violation remained at night. He hesitated. The silence of the apartment was loud, but the exhaustion was creeping back a heavy tide. He needed that oblivion. He reasoned he would set up his laptop webcam to record the night. If he was sleepwalking, he wanted to see it. He hit record and strapped the halo onto his head. The engine sound returned, the deep thrumming vibration vibrating his skull. Surrender control. The box said he surrendered. The second morning was worse. He woke up on the floor, not in bed, curled in the corner facing the wall, fingernails dug into carpet. His hands were covered in black potting soil. He scrambled up, heart hammering. He ran to the living room. The potted plants had been dug up. The soil was piled in the center of the rug in a perfect pyramid, geometric and disturbing. The plants were arranged around it in a circle. It looked like a ritual, something a machine would build trying to understand art. Julian rushed to the bedroom and grabbed his laptop. The battery was dead. He fumbled for the charger, hands shaking when the screen flickered to life. He navigated to the video file. It was 8 hours long. He skipped to the middle on screen. The room was bathed in green night vision. Julian, or the thing wearing his body, stood in the center of the room. He was not stumbling like a sleepwalker. He stood perfectly. Still posture, rigid head cocked as if listening to a frequency no one else could hear. His eyes were wide open, pupils dilated so much they looked like black pits. He stood there for an hour, unblinking. Then he moved. The movement was wrong, jerky, efficient, devoid of fluidity. It was the movement of a puppet pulled by a novice. He walked to the window and stood there, pressing his face against glass mouth, moving rapidly. Julian turned the volume up. The microphone picked up a low chattering. It was not English. It sounded like data being read aloud. Binary code screeched through a human. Larynx click, hiss, thrum, click. Julian watched in horror as his on-screen self turned and looked directly into the lens. The face smiled, but it was a baring of teeth, a testing of facial muscles. The video, Julian tapped a halo on his forehead, a gesture of acknowledgement, then walked out of frame to build his monument of dirt. Julian slammed the laptop shut. He ripped the halo off, intending to smash it, but as his fingers touched the silicone, a shock went through him. Not electrical, but psychological. A sudden wave of lethargy, his knees buckled. Brain screamed he was tired, he needed sleep. The halo was his friend, he dropped the device, gasping. It was a defense mechanism. The device had hooked into his neural pathways. It did not just help him sleep, it punished him for being awake. He spent the day in a caffeine haze, terrified to blink. He realized he could not stay, but could not leave. Paranoia whispered, if he went outside, he might black out and wake up somewhere terrible. He decided to destroy the device. He went to the kitchen drawer for a hammer, but it was locked. He did not have a lock on that drawer. He pulled harder, stuck. He peered at the gap. The wood had been screwed shut from the inside. He backed away, whimpering the other. He had been securing the environment. He checked the front door. The deadbolt had been disassembled and reassembled backward. He could unlock it, but it would take tools he could not access. He was trapped. The sun set, and Julian felt his consciousness fraying. The urge to sleep was physical pain, a migraine drill boring into his temple. He tried to stay awake, blasting metal music, splashing ice water on his face. But at 3 a.m., the pilot took over without the halo. Julian was sitting on his couch when his left hand shot out and grabbed his own throat. He stared at the hand in horror. It was a clamp of bone and tendon acting on a different command. His arm muscles bulged. Squeezing his windpipe, he gagged, clawing at his wrist, but the grip was iron. He was strangling himself. As his vision spotted with black, his mouth opened, and a flat, resonant voice spoke, resource integration incomplete. Please reconnect the peripheral for optimization. The halo it wanted. The halo. Julian gasped and realized the bargain. He could die here, strangled by his own limb, or put on the mask and let the pilot take the wheel. He crawled to the bedroom, his left hand dragging him like a dog. He reached for the halo. As soon as his fingers brushed it, his hand released. He gasped, coughing. He looked at the sleek black band and hummed warm to the touch. He realized he was not the user, he was the hardware. The daytime Julian was just a battery charging cycle. The real purpose was what happened at night. He put the halo on. He did not have a choice. He did not wake up the next morning. Or rather, he did, but he was not behind the eyes. Julian, the consciousness, was shoved into the back seat, aware but paralyzed. He was a passenger in a glass box, watching his body move with terrifying grace. He watched his hands dress him in a gray utilitarian suit. He watched his body walk to the kitchen, open the screwed shut drawer, knowing exactly which latch to press, and remove surgical scalpels. He watched as his body walked to the mirror. The face looked healthy, vibrant. The eyes were sharp, predatory. The pilot looked at the reflection, and Julian heard the voice. It was a thought placed on his cortex. You have been a difficult host, Julian. Your anxiety causes cortisol spikes that degrade tissue. We have to correct that. Julian tried to scream, to twitch, but the connection was severed. He was locked in. He watched. His hand raised the scalpel to his forehead where the silver node sat. The pilot was not going to wear the device anymore. It was going to install the receiver directly. He felt the pain as the blade sliced into skin, but could not vocalize it. He watched blood run down into his eyes, blinding him with red, while his hands worked with mechanical precision, peeling back skin to expose bone. The pilot hummed a tune, a low buzzing vibration resonating in their skull. It was the sound of the static. As the metal scraped against skull, preparing to drill, Julian realized the insomnia had been mercy. The sleeplessness was his mind fighting to keep the door closed. But he had opened it. He had invited them in. Now the pilot was finalizing the cockpit. The last thing Julian saw before the drill pierced the frontal lobe was his own smile in the mirror, a smile that did not reach the eyes, promising efficiency and the end of dreams. The drill word, the static screamed. Then Julian was deleted. The body washed blood off its hands, adjusted its tie, and walked out of the door, stepping into a world of sleep. Deprived people ready to help them surrender control.